Hello and welcome to Dog Podcast Live. This is not a podcast. This is, a live introducing all the podcasts that we have on Dog Podcast Network. I'm James Jacobson in Maui, Hawaii.
And I'm Claire Mansell in London, England.
And you are wherever you are, whether you're watching this live or in a recording. This is our effort to let you know what we are doing at DPN, because every week Dog Podcast Network releases new shows, new episodes, just for dog lovers like you on all sorts of subjects. Claire and I are lucky enough to co-host a show that is our flagship show. It's called Dog Edition.
I thought for a moment you'd forgotten what it was called. That was worrying. It's called it's called Dog Edition. And
by the way, this is water. I was chatting with someone the other day and they thought he's drinking vodka. I'm like, no, this is water.
It is still early in the morning in Hawaii. Yes. Our new episode of Dog Edition, which is out this week, is one which I know you've seen me say this. I'm thrilled to be a part of because it's really exciting. It's kind of funny and informative and full of really quirky, interesting stuff. It's called Wag the Vote. And perhaps you should explain a little more about what that is.
I will. So dogs have saved democracy multiple times. They may have even prevented us from going into nuclear war with the US and the Soviet Union. That's on this week's episode of Dog Edition. But what the whole concept is not only are dogs good at saving democracy, they're also good at helping leverage people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. Leverage, that's my term for leverage. Leverage things that they should do, but they don't always do. Years ago, I wrote a book called How to Meditate with Your Dog, and it was really about, people will do things for their dog that they wouldn't do for themselves. So they would learn to meditate. And so it was really successful in part because it was taking the fact that we love our dogs and dogs think we're pretty good and therefore they inspire us to do things. Well, the most important thing that I think we can do right now, in addition to meditation, is if you live in a democracy, most of you do, you should get out and vote, whether you live in the United States or in Great Britain or anywhere where you have the opportunity to vote. And so we discussed this concept of it's the right thing to do. Dogs, if they could, they would vote. And we are unleashing democracy. We are encouraging people to start and tell others about it, other dog lovers about it, in a campaign that we are launching officially on this episode, which is called Wag the Vote. Now, we are not the first people to have ever done this, not even the first people to use that name, but we are really making this a mainstay of what we're doing, not only this coming election in November in the US, but ongoing because, the franchise is important to exercise and dogs would do it. So we talk about that with some amazing, amazing guests on this episode.
Dogs believe in the power of the pack, don't they? They're all about the group rather than the individual. And I think that's why dogs would vote. There's also some very interesting stuff in there about how dogs act as social bridges, which is really true about how you can have a conversation with people if you have a dog with you that you wouldn't perhaps normally start a conversation. And in fact, I was in New York earlier this year, and it was really notable that, sometimes people say New York can be a bit unfriendly to outsiders. Everyone I spoke to was somebody who had a dog, because it started the conversation. You just say, well, what breed is it? How old are they? That kind of conversation. And so, I think dogs are really powerful social bridges. So, yes. So Wag the Vote, very interesting episode. I know I'm part of it. And obviously I would say it's interesting, but I learned things about the nuclear war thing the dog prevented, and have a listen. It's really, really good
stuff. So check it out at dogedition.com or wherever you get your podcasts. But before we talk about some of the other episodes, I think we would be remiss in not talking about the fact that this week the Queen's funeral occurred in London and just down the road from you, up the road.
Yeah, obviously. Didn't we lay on a fantastic performance? Is that the right word? Because It really was. There were people out there dressed in their finery, the organization behind it all, the horses, the transport, the people. It was incredible. So
No,
I
no
think
one
it was,
does it better. I mean,
yeah,
y'all in Great Britain know how to put on pomp
yeah.
and
It was the
ceremony.
most amazing send off, and it went on for 8 hours from the moment the commentary started until it ended. It was 8 hours, and my
And
6 year
I
old,
found myself riveted just watch. I was one of those suckers I who watched the BBC feed of
yeah,
people filing in and paying their respects and watching the changing of the guards every 20 minutes or whatever they were called. And I thought this is silly. And then I spent an hour or two just mesmerized by it and seeing the reverence and the pageantry and also just the fact that there were people from clearly all over the world who were doing this and coming to visit and pay their respects to the Queen. And it really
yeah.
touched me.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. And it was 8 hours long, so I don't feel that this is disrespectful to say. But during the time, obviously, I mean, we all had to have breaks to do things. Like we had to eat meals and stuff. We couldn't just sit there for the whole time. I painted the wall behind me.
No
during
birds. If you look at last
no,
week's show, you'll see birds used to be there.
yeah, so I had it on the screen in here and I painted the wall behind me. And I will forever remember that this wall was painted on the day of the Queen's funeral. It's what she would have wanted.
It is. I think it's a beautiful. I love your set. Now you also ran out of paint, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I ran out of paint on the day when everything in the UK was shut. And you know, so this wall I calculated it is
One coat of
nine.
paint.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 9 square meters. The paint I bought said one coat, you know, you don't have to do any more. And it was supposed to cover 12 square meters. So I was like, well, it's 9 and it says 12. Oh no. They're so cunning, those paint manufacturers. It's like just slightly too little, just slightly. So you have to go out and buy a whole other tin. So
Get an extra can. That
yeah,
is,
exactly.
it's just marketing.
So I've now got 3/4 of a tin left. But anyway, that's a whole other story. Now, look, before we get completely sidetracked, we must talk about these other episodes of Dog Edition that are coming up. We talk about the Queen. Next week, there is an episode coming out on Tuesday next week, which is all about the Queen's corgis and all about the long relationship she had with the breed and how they were at her side during really important moments of history and some lovely little snippets about her relationship with them. And that's really worth a listen. We've got one on homeless dogs and homeless owners coming up as well the week after, and one on Argentinian dog rescue, which is breaking the mold of some of the not so desirable shelters which there are in Argentina. And one which I do want to give a plug to because we've just come out of a meeting. Carrie, who's our newest producer, is putting together an episode on dogs and grief. And they would love to hear from anybody who has a pet who has experienced grief, either grief for a lost dog sibling or even a cat sibling. We could be controversial there. A furry sibling, or for a human owner. So if someone has been in the unfortunate position of losing a member of their family, has the dog reacted to that? And do they have a story to share? So you can reach out to us on our social via our website, and we'll make sure that gets to Carrie, who is putting together the story.
Or the best way probably is to go to our website, dogpodcastnetwork.com, and click on the Contact Us button. And also, if you ever want to leave us a voice recording that maybe we'll use in a future episode, there is a little microphone on the bottom of certainly every episode page where you can click that and leave us a voice memo, and you can record on your computer or your phone and share that with us, or just email works or whatever. But we'd love to hear from you. We are very much relying on your help and your support as we continue to grow Dog Podcast Network, to not only tell other people about our shows, but also to share about your own love for dogs. And so we're going to occasionally on these lives give you an opportunity to share with us a story that you've had that could very well make it into one of our future podcasts.
Do you want to also give a mention for some of the stuff that's coming up with The Long Leash, which of course is your other show, Jim?
Sure. I have another show. It's called The Long Leash. And this week we have a conversation with Alex DeGiorgi. It's sort of a deep dive into what is a field that I had never heard of before called canine forensics. Several weeks ago, we did an episode on Dog Edition about when dogs can go into a wildfire situation where basically everything is totally destroyed and all the homes are totally burned and it's basically hard to even recognize the land, but they can get dogs to go in and find ashes in ashes, and I mean like urns, cremains that have just been destroyed in wildfires. And so you have ashes inside of ashes, and how are they ever found? Well, there are these dogs that can do it, and Alex DeGiorgi is our guest this week on The Long Leash, and the URL for that show is longleashshow.com, or you can find any of it on our main website at dogpodcastnetwork.com.
And we should also mention that on Dog Cancer Answers this week, we have Dr. Brooke Britton, who is talking about whether lipomass can hide mast cell tumors in dogs. And they're looking at the case of Jenny, who was told by her vet that her dog had lipomass, and it turned out to be mast cell tumors. And they're talking about that in depth. And so you can check that all out on Dog Cancer Answers.
That's one of the shows here at Dog Podcast Network that we say, we're sorry you have to listen to, but if you're listening to it, it's because you probably have a dog with cancer. But as we all know, cancer is the #1 killer of dogs. So we have a whole bunch of dedicated resources for people with dogs with cancer. You can find that podcast and a lot more information at dogcanceranswers.com. And it's a really important show and has helped tens of thousands of people whose dogs have cancer. So if you have one or you know of someone, please let them know about Dog Cancer Answers.
Fantastic. So we should just finish up by saying, check out the website, wagthevote.org, and you can find out how your dog can help save democracy. It's a big role for a dog, but it's one that they're up to. And also, you know, as we always say, if you go out on your dog walk and you're stopping and chatting and talking about the weather and what you've been up to this week, please recommend Dog Podcast Network and all of our shows to fellow dog lovers, because it really helps us grow.
Please. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you, and we always want to hear what you have to say. So just get in touch with us at dogpodcastnetwork.com. And I guess that's it for this week. I'm James Jacobson.
And I'm Claire Mansell.
On behalf of all of us, and we have a big and growing team at DPN, I want to thank you for listening today, and take care, and the best to you and your dog. As I always say, we wish them both, you all both, a warm aloha. Bye-bye.